Hey, what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Igorrr again with MetalTrenches.com, and it's time for me to share with you my top 10 favorite metal albums of 2020. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. But that out of the way, I have been mulling this over throughout the year, and despite the usual struggles in leaving certain albums out, I feel pretty confident in my final pick, so let's just jump into it. Number 10, it's technical death metal band Beneath the Massacre with Fearmonger via Century Media Records. I've always been sort of on the sidelines when it comes to Beneath the Massacre. I definitely appreciated their albums when my friends recommended them to me back in high school, but frankly, this comeback makes all of that previous material seem like garbage in comparison. With the perfect fusion of dizzying technicality and fiercely infectious hooks, Fearmonger takes all of the band's best qualities and amplifies them to their absolute peak. I'm in awe of just how much their songwriting skills have improved since we last heard them so long ago, and as a result, this is also easily Beneath the Massacre's most consistent album to date, with not a single dud amongst these 10 battering tracks. Please don't go. Just stay. Don't go. Number 9 is progressive metal and metalcore legends Protest the Hero with Palimpsest. Another comeback record of sorts, but this time for a band I have absolutely loved since my very first listen of Kazaya. As I mentioned in my tier list, I pretty much love every single album of theirs, but for me, it's all about volition. That said, I think that Palimpsest may have what it takes to topple that album from its throne. I really wasn't sure what to expect with these guys returning from their hiatus, and even my first listen didn't quite stir the same emotions, but this is definitely one of those albums that only gets better every single time I throw it on. From the final soaring moments of From the Sky and infectious and almost saccharine sing-alongs of All Hands, to the ripping heavy metal guitars of Reverie and maddeningly proggy riffs of The Fireside, Protest the Hero have not lost an ounce of their talent in balancing catchiness with always impressive performances across the board. Number 8 is Pennsylvania cyberdeath project Zombieshark with I Will Destroy You, Myself, and Everything I've Ever Loved. I really wasn't sure exactly what to expect when I threw this album on initially, but it's another one I had a really hard time putting down. An unlikely mashup of haunting Lynchian ambience, brutal deathcore breakdowns, Silent Hill references, club-worthy synthesizers, and a hint of Fear Factory-fashioned industrial riffing. This is a highly concentrated 23 minutes of organized chaos, from the stupid heavy death metal vocals and inhuman blasts of grinders like 100 Likes and Red Pyramids Kill Each Other, to the wispy, drifting Blade Runner-esque interludes. It's a real blast to listen to, and I really enjoyed digging into the details with Corey on the podcast. Number 7 is technical progressive mathcore band Torrential, Downpour and their much-awaited fourth album, 2020. Another album many years in the making, and from a band that to this day holds one of the handful of perfect 10 out of 10s for their previous outing, Truth, Knowledge, Vision. Needless to say, my anticipation for this one was sky high, and fortunately this is one of those times where the wait truly was worth it. All 5 of these tracks are clearly works of love with attention to detail that has been finely tuned over its roughly 6-year writing process, a fact that was only made clearer when speaking with the whole group during their recent interview. The level of passion in every single instrument and massive sounding production is beyond all expectations, from the chaotic Mike Patton-esque vocals to the Dillinger Escape Plan meets ISIS instrumentation. They even got Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater to play keys on the incredible opening track Apperceptive Mass. If any of that intrigues you even just a little bit, do not sleep on this album. Number 6 is eclectic and eccentric death metal band Cult of Lilith with Mara via Unique Leader Records. As this list will only make clearer as we go along, I have a real soft spot for bands that not only crank out sick tunes, but also do so in a way that brings some unique twists along with it. Such is definitely the case with Cult of Lilith. Think bands like the Black Dahlia Murder colliding with the more progressive and sometimes even gent and mathcore song structures of Inferi and Sixth, symphonic elements of Flesh God Apocalypse, and bizarre baroque and classical randomness of Igorrr. Listening to Mara is like experiencing a highly immersive metal opera, punctuated by some seriously impressive guitar work and constantly shifting stylistic palette. Another great vocal performance on this one as well, traversing many different sounds and approaches over its runtime. Again, if you like the idea of Flesh God Apocalypse with more twists and turns, get in here now. Number 5 is Finnish progressive death metal band Humavoid with Lidless. Ever wondered what Meshuggah would sound like with dual vocals and a keytar player?
Good guess, but actually no.
Well, speculate no further with this fantastic new album from Humavoid. Lidless is like a massive love letter to the Swedish legend's early works, but with their own unique fingerprints all over it. Frontwoman Suvi Marja is an absolute beast on this record already when it comes to both her growls and clean singing, but once you add her keytar contributions to the mix, it's just all the more impressive. And not to be overshadowed, all of the other band members have something to contribute, functioning like a highly oiled machine pumping out groove after groove with tons of technicality to go with it. Meshuggah fans in particular do not miss this album, but really if you dig any kind of heavy progressive music, you owe it to yourself to check this one out as well. Number 4, we've got more Baroque-infused experimental madness from Igorrr with Spirituality and Distortion via Metal Blade Records. Probably the most challenging and perhaps even confusing album on this list, Igorrr takes the award once more for being one of the most innovative and eclectic projects in the game. From the Aphex Twin breakbeats of Very Noise to the Corpse Grinder guest vocals on the 8-bitified Parpang, no one single can truly capture the full scope of what this album has in store for you. There's classical waltzes, harpsichords, strings, Middle Eastern instruments, accordion, and operatic singing, each always paired alongside some sort of contrasting counterpoint, be it pummeling blast beats or dissonant shrieking. Spirituality and Distortion is definitely not for everyone, but if you find yourself feeling like it's all been done and metal has nothing new to say, I encourage you to eat those words while listening to this record. Number 3, it's Deftones with Ohms via Reprise Records. After Igorrr, my expectations for this new release were pretty low going into it, and the lead singles didn't necessarily get me all that hyped. That said, I could not stop listening to this album. Ohms seems to be another fairly divisive record within the Deftones discography, with people either loving it or hating it. Personally, I would put this album just below Koi no Yokan and definitely think it warrants being called among the best of 2020. Each track has its own unique personality, once more marrying thick atmosphere with powerful riffs. And speaking of the former, I really do think this is Frank Delgado's best work with the band to date. His contributions take the already powerful compositions and make them transcend into an entirely new plane. Another captivating release from one of my favorite bands of all time. Number 2, it's metallic hardcore and post-metal fusers Loathe with I Let It In and It Took Everything. Now, if anyone could truly out-Deftones in the same year that they actually drop a new album, it's UK band Loathe. Officially given the mark of approval from Chino himself, this band has in essence perfectly unified my 16-year-old self with my present-day self on this album that is as emotionally potent as it is heavy. One minute it's the absolutely bludgeoning metallic hardcore spirit that has become one of my modern mainstays, the next I'm transported back to days in high school spent drifting along on my Discman to White Pony and the self-titled album. Not to mention with vocals that made me question initially whether Chino was actually singing on this record. And whichever approach Loathe are utilizing at any given moment, they give it their all every single time. There are certain moments that nearly bring me to tears and others that send me clawing through the drywall and ready to throw this chair through the window. Powerful stuff that, despite being released so early in the year, has remained one of my top 2 picks for the entire duration of 2020. Speaking of which, number 1 goes to Code Orange and Underneath via Roadrunner Records. This was that other 2020 album that entered my top picks at the very beginning of the year and never left my rotation since. I had high hopes for this one coming off of Forever, which was not only one of the best albums of that year, but arguably the entire past decade. Underneath finds the band taking all of the heaviest notes of that record while also forging ever forwards into further experimentation with atmospheric ambience, glitchy electronic effects, and clear influences from 90s grunge and nu metal. The band kick in the door with the highly aggressive trio of Swallowing the Rabbit Whole, In Fear, and You Alone, before taking the first of many twists and turns with the Reba-led Who Am I? I am confident that this band will only continue to focus their attention towards the future as they continue to conquer the airwaves and even achieve some mainstream status along the way. And while they may gain just as many haters as lovers, definitely count me among the latter. Check out some of my other list of favorites of 2020 by genre, discussion of them with Chris on the podcast, full album reviews of each of these albums, interviews with almost all of these bands on the podcast, and of course, please do again subscribe if you happen to be new here. In the description, you'll find links to our social media where you can follow us, the email newsletter I send out personally